Downton Abbey was the wildly successful masterpiece classic show that captured our hearts, so much that it warranted its own movie to be made. Picking up shortly where the show left off, we return to see the Crawley family as they are expecting a royal visit. Director Michael Engel gives us one last invitation to look into Downton Abbey and how it's run and everything else. My name is Rose King, and this is the very first episode of The Tudor Rose. So today, obviously, I'm going to be reviewing the Downton Abbey movie. I'll be discussing plot lines, everything else, so here is a spoiler alert for you. If you don't want to know what happens in the Downton Abbey movie, then stop watching right now. I will tell you, if you were a fan of the show, I would encourage you to go see this movie. So just to give you a little bit of background on Downton Abbey in case you never did watch the show and you just would like to watch this review, which I do appreciate. Downton Abbey, the show, followed the Crawley family, who was an upper-class noble family in England, and it starts in 1912 and it ends in the early 1920s. The movie picks back up as we discover that the Crawley family is expecting a royal visit from the King and Queen of England. At this point, it would be King George V and Queen Mary. These are the two monarchs who brought England and Great Britain through World War I. They are also the royal family who changed their names to Windsor to be more English. Little side tip for you. I'm going to discuss the pros and the cons of this movie. I will tell you that I did enjoy this movie a lot, and I'll kind of give my final thoughts at the end. There are some cons in it, but we're going to start off with the positives. The first thing that I want to say is that this movie is shot beautifully. It really has a lot of sweeping scenes of Downton Abbey itself and the manner that they use to film, which, by the way, I just found out that you can actually, through Airbnb, stay there now. I think that reservations go up on like October 1st, so definitely going to be trying to go there. This movie was obviously taken care of in the way that it was filmed. I thought that the editing was great. I thought that the lighting was really great. Like, everything technical was really beautiful and not overused. Like, they only used sweeping motions of the manner when they really needed it. And also the music, which is very iconic for Downton Abbey fans, was spot on. They didn't overuse the theme, and I thought that they did a really good job with that. The major pro about this movie is that it was not overly jam-packed with timelines. If you're a Downton Abbey fan, you know that there's at least 50 things going on in every season, and that Downton Abbey is a relatively slow burn, so it's a lot. There's a lot of stuff packed into each episode, and there was usually only like 8 or 9 episodes, including the Christmas specials. They use plot points that are not incredibly consequential, -1. In this movie, they don't bring in any huge revelations that would like change the lives of these people to the point where we no longer recognize them, which I really appreciate, because they definitely had a few of those moments in the show where it was like, wow, nothing's going to be the same after this. The one relatively serious plot line they didn't even carry throughout the whole movie, which I appreciated because I feel like it would have dragged the movie down quite a bit, and that is that Branson, I'm going to refer to him as Branson because there's a couple of Toms in the Downton Abbey universe, but Branson is approached by someone who says that they are a major in the armed forces, and Branson believes that this is somebody who's trying to keep an eye on him because he is an Irish Republican and he's not really for the royal family, and he's pretty sure that it's someone that the royal family has sent to keep an eye on him to make sure he doesn't do anything. He later discovers that this guy is actually planning on assassinating King George V, and he actually stops the plot. And it's really great because a lot of the family is, I guess, understandably nervous that Branson is going to do something, and Mary really ends up being the one to defend him and say, no, like, Branson, first of all, loved Sybil too much, loves his daughter Sibby too much, loves us too much, he would not screw anything up. And she kind of sees Tom going off to meet this guy and helps him stop the plot, and it's this really great moment where we see that Branson really has become a part of the family without having to compromise who he is, which was always a big thing in the show with his character. So it was kind of nice to see that moment of, wow, you are one of us while still being yourself, which is hard to do in that kind of life. Another big pro is that they really focus on the downstairs life, which honestly was the heart and soul of the show. we see a lot of what's going on. We do see Anna and Mr. Bates' son, Johnny, for like a split second, which is kind of nice. And I'm also really happy that they did not really focus on the kids. I think that they really could have done a plot where they focused a lot on like George and him growing up and how is he going to be, you know. But I think that everybody just wanted to see the characters that they know and love, and they just wanted to know what was going on with them. The other big plot that's going on is that the cousin of the Crawleys, who is played by the same actress who plays Dolores Umbridge, I'm probably just going to refer to her as Umbridge, she is coming because she is like an assistant or like a lady in waiting to Queen Mary, and we find out that her and Violet have had some issues in the past because Umbridge does not want Robert to have her inheritance, even though he is like her next lineal heir, and Violet doesn't quite understand. We find out that her maid, Lucy, is actually her biological child that she had with someone out of wedlock, and that's why she's going to leave everything to Lucy. You kind of see it coming from a mile away, but it's just enough of a twist where it's like, oh, that's what's happening. And it's not like, oh my god, how are they going to figure that out? It's very nice. It's enough Downton Abbey mystery and like, what are they going to do without being like, oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. Another big thing that they handle beautifully is the way that they basically say that Violet is going to pass away. Granny is old. I mean, she's old in 1912 when they start the show, so she's got to be getting up there by the time it's the mid-1920s when the movie takes place. At the end of the movie, they're at a ball with the royal family, and Mary and Violet go into a separate room, and Violet basically tells her that her doctor has told her that she does not have much time to live, and there's this really beautiful emotional scene between Violet and Mary where Violet basically says, I'm handing Downton Abbey over to you. You are the best of me, and you will carry Downton Abbey into the 20th century, and you are the future of Downton Abbey. Which is really beautiful to see because Mary has a few moments throughout the movie where she's like, oh my god, this is such hard work. Do I really want to keep doing this? Is it really worth it? And I think that Violet telling her, you are the future of this place, you are what's going to keep it going, really revitalizes her. We also see this moment between Anna and Mary where Anna is also encouraging her and saying, you know, you're keeping people employed by keeping Downton Abbey open and all this other things. And it's a really nice moment between Anna and Mary, who in my opinion have one of the best relationships in the entire show, and it's very much carried on into the movie. What I consider to be the best relationship in the entire series is definitely showcased in the movie, and that's between Isabel and Violet. They are so good together, and they don't overuse them, because the thing is, there's a ton of quips throughout each season, but if you had them all in like a 2-hour block, then you'd probably be like, okay, we get it. But they really have like these little like almost like vignettes where you see Isabel and Violet talking to each other, and Violet has all the best quips in the world. Like, she's arguing with Umbridge, and Robert tells her, Mom, you know, don't argue. And she goes, I don't argue, I explain. She has the best lines in the show, some of the most iconic moments, and she definitely, like, Maggie Smith is just a worldwide treasure. Not even a national treasure, just a worldwide treasure, and we should keep her in our hearts at all times. She's just fantastic. And it's also heartbreaking when you realize that Violet's going to be gone soon. And I think that it was great that they handled it that way, because they could have done a funeral, they could have done all of that, but I just feel like it would have brought the whole tone of the movie down. So instead of making it really sad and depressing, they made it this sort of like passing of the torch moment, this sort of generational gap. And I thought that that was far more classy, which Violet would definitely appreciate. I don't think that she would want her body to be displayed for everyone to see. And I think that it was a testament to Violet as a character. The other thing that's really amazing is that two characters that really have been missing love finally get their moment, and it's the two Toms. Branson ends up falling for Lucy, the maid, to Umbridge, and Violet sees her opportunity and she goes, no, I'm all for it. I will lick the stamps myself if they want to write each other. Because she thinks, well, this way, you know, Tom's in the family, and if he marries her, we'll get the house anyway, we'll get the inheritance anyway. But it's really beautiful to see him fall in love again. We haven't seen him do that. He's had like a couple of like blips, but you can tell like as soon as he sees Lucy, you're like, here we go, there it is. And it's really beautiful because he really hasn't had that since Sybil passed away, and I like that they gave him that finally. And then Tom Barrows, who I will refer to as Barrows, he finally finds somebody, and it's like probably my favorite part of the movie because the entire show, they do portray, I mean, Barrows is quite the jerk throughout most of the show, but it's not excusable, but it's understandable because he has to hide being gay. And, you know, if he does have a relationship with somebody, it's often exploited or he's used, like with the Duke in the first season. Like, it's sad. And then finally, we get the actor who plays Thomas Seymour in the Tudors, who blows any part that he's in out of the water. And he comes in as, like, the second string valet to the king, and he basically sweeps in and sweeps Barrows off his feet, and it's beautiful. And there's this plot line in the movie, and this is an example of, this could have been very serious, but it wasn't. Tom and his friend go to York, and his friend's like, I have to go see my parents and then I'll meet up with you. And Tom gets taken to this underground gay bar, which was a thing back then. And he's just so happy because he's like, I've never been anywhere like this. Like, oh my God, I can just be myself. And then, of course, the police bust it. And he's taken to jail. And his friend goes in and basically convinces the police, like, oh, we were just playing a joke on those gay guys. Because that's unfortunately what he has to do. We're still talking about England in the 1920s where homosexuality is not only illegal, it's considered just morally repugnant, which is repugnant in itself. And then we see this moment where his friend goes, you know, men like us have to be more careful sometimes. And there is a moment at the end of the movie where they kiss, and you can just tell, like, Tom finally has somebody that he can love. That really, like, hit me here, because honestly, Barrows is one of my favorite characters because he's so complicated. He's not just nice. And I think that Downton Abbey does such a good job of doing that, because my favorite characters are people that are not always nice. Like, my favorites are like Violet, Mary, and Barrows, because they're not nice, and they know that they're not. But they still have big hearts, and they still care when it matters. Now on to the cons. There's not nearly as many, but the one, and this is such a weird nitpick, I didn't like how they didn't bring back Sybil and Matthew. They do mention Sybil a few times, but there was a moment where Branson and Lucy share a kiss on the walkway, and it fades away from them, and it goes in, and I really wanted there to either be a picture of Sybil, or like her as a spirit, like watching them. I wanted that moment. I wanted that moment of like, oh, he's happy. I can move on now. I can rest easily because the love of my life has love again. And I really, really think that although I loved the moment between Anna and Mary, I really think that they could have utilized Matthew, and I understand that actors have schedules and things, but they could have had Matthew there and have a conversation with Mary, and Mary have almost talking to herself in the mirror and be like, is this worth it? Do I need to keep going on? And then to have Matthew behind her and say, yes, of course this is worth it. It's for our son. It's for his future. And, you know, you do this. And, you know, I still love you, and I still value everything that we had. And I wanted that moment for Mary. They don't even mention Matthew. They don't even say his name. And it's like 3 of the plot lines that I really was not a huge fan of. The first one is the royal servants. I hate that word, but that's the royal workers are jerks to the Downton staff. There we go, staff. Kind of just barge in and take over because they're the royal staff and they're there to help the king and queen, and that's just kind of what happens. And yeah, it sucks, but it's still 1920 whatever, and it's kind of how it works. The Downton staff take over, and they lock people in rooms and stuff. I didn't enjoy that plot line. I know the people that saw it with me, a couple of them thought that it was oh, this really big rallying moment. I took it more as what are you doing? Your family, your bosses are having their boss, the CEO over and you're gonna lock these people into rooms. Like, that's very risky. I think that they could have done it in a different way. I understood that it was supposed to be this fun moment of camaraderie, but I did not like it. I thought maybe the chef could have gotten sick. Maybe the butler could have fallen and like sprained his ankle or something. Like, there could have been like a series of events that's like, oh my god, what are we gonna do? And then the Downton staff pulls it together and the king and queen get to be like, oh, you did such a good job, that's so great. I also didn't like that Carson went along with it, even by keeping silent. I know that Carson is not nearly as tight-laced as he was in the series or in the beginning of the series, but I didn't think that suited his character very much, and I don't know. It took me out of the movie a little bit. And speaking of Carson, the second plotline that I didn't enjoy was how they brought Carson back to the house. We knew that Carson was going to come back. We knew that he would come back in some sort of capacity, but the way that he's asked to come back is incredibly mean. Mary basically sees, because Barrows is now the butler of Downton Abbey, he's not doing what she considers to be the best job preparing for the royal visit, and instead of, as his boss, approaching him and saying, Barrows, I really think that maybe you either need help, maybe we should get Carson in, because he's probably more used to this scale of a thing, because frankly they haven't entertained like that since probably the beginning of the show. And, maybe you need some help. And I feel like we're not doing what we need to do. No, she just goes down to Carson's house and tells him, like, Barrows is really sucking and you need to come in and fix this. I really didn't like that. I thought it was very backhanded. And Barrows, rightfully so, really has this moment where he's like, well, I guess when you need me, just call me. And he, like, storms out of the room. And Mary looks at Robert and goes, are you going to sack him? And I'm like, no, he's not going to. Like, even Robert was like, you didn't even tell me that you were doing that. I just thought there was, again, better ways to handle that. There were better ways. Like, she could have approached Tom or Barrows and been like, I think that you're trying your best. I just think that we need someone with a little more experience with this kind of visit. He didn't have to be happy about it. He still could have had his little moment. But, like, why did you have to do it that way? It does give way so that Tom can have the scene and the sequence where he goes to the bar later on, but you still could have had that sequence because the royal staff was like, hey, get out, and he still could have left, he still could have gone, so I don't think it would have changed the plot enough to just be nicer to Barrows. The last plot line that I really I didn't get was Edith's plot line. Props and a pro is that she's very happy in this movie, relatively, and they didn't mess with her too much, which I thought was great, because they mess with Edith so bad in the show that, like, even though Edith is not one of my favorite characters, like, I would always just be like, damn, like, this girl can't catch a break. Her ball gown, or her dress for the party that they're having with the royal family, it's not showing up. They don't know what's happening, and then when it finally gets there, it doesn't fit. It's really big. And the second string, like, maid for the Queen of England mentions early on in the movie that she's a professional dressmaker, and we also find out throughout the show that she is stealing little trinkets from Downton Abbey, and Anna basically blackmails her to fix this dress overnight, or she's going to tell everybody, and also you need to return these items. My problem with that is, first of all, why? Like, I know that it's Downton Abbey and they always have to have a plot line like that, but, like, why? And it's very reminiscent to Baxter's story where she stole because somebody told her to. So I didn't quite understand that. Like, why couldn't the maid just be a really nice person and be like, yes, I will help fix this dress? Like, you can have the dress plot line, I guess. You gotta give Edith something to do. And also any plot line with Daisy. I thought they focused too much on Daisy, but Daisy's probably my least favorite character. She's relatively annoying to me. Great actress. I think the actress does a really good job, but Daisy as a character is probably my least favorite, but that's just me. Overall, I think that the Downton Abbey movie was a slam dunk. I really think that they did a good job. They kept the spirit of the show intact without feeling like they needed to go overboard or needed, like, pull out all the stops. You know, it was like a really extended episode of Downton Abbey, and that's what I wanted. When they announced that this movie was coming out, I was relatively nervous. You know, sometimes when they take shows and make them into movies, it just isn't quite as good. And this was just as good as the show Downton Abbey. And you can tell that the people who were involved with the show were involved with the movie. I like that they focused on the characters that we know and love. They didn't try to go too far into the future or anything. I like that it was a contained, only like a couple weeks worth of a storyline. They didn't try to go everywhere. They didn't try to infuse a bunch of stuff that we are not familiar with. I really encourage you, if you are a fan of Downton Abbey, to go check out this movie. I would like to review Downton Abbey, the show, eventually on this channel, so if that's something that you would like to see, please go ahead and let me know. So that is the first official review here on the Tudor Rose. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Make sure that you subscribe and hit the bell so that you know when I upload more reviews. And if you enjoy reviews and discussions on historical content, everything from movies to books to documentaries, please make sure that you stick around. There's going to be a lot more where this came from. And my name is Rose King, and I will see you in the next video.